Well, in this edition of the Resilient Professional Podcast, we're going to take a look at how you can increase cognitive and emotional resilience through future casting. And I'll unpack what future casting is in a minute.
Welcome to the Resilient Professional Podcast. Professional success really is a game of inches. You have the experience and knowledge, but you realize that professional success is more than just knowledge and experience. It's actually applying what you already know. It's about consistently applying what you know in spite of the challenges that are sure to come your way. You know, Olympians know how to battle adversity and to perform at their best, even in the midst of setbacks and frustrations. I think we can learn a lot from the Olympian mindset. It really is about the cultivation of resiliency. Physical resiliency, emotional resiliency, relational resiliency, cognitive resiliency, resiliency in each aspect of our lives. On a regular basis, we'll unpack these ideas through guest speakers and podcast material that will take you to the next level of professional success.
You know, I think most of us know at some level that in order to successfully install change in our lives, our personal history and experience confirms that we oscillate between two extremes to successfully initiate change. The extremes are from, one end, which is pain that creates motivation, and pleasure, which can create motivation as well. But for many people, and probably for the majority of people out there, pain seems to be the one catalyst that can really help people to install change. It really seems to be the one strategy that installs intrinsic internal drivers to make sure that we are successful and consistent and motivated to initiate change. The problem is that for many of us, we're distracting ourselves on a daily basis, whether it's busy to-do lists, business activities, just the daily activities of life. And very often there's just shallow reflection, and we get lost in the distraction of our technology or entertainment. So we never really face those important questions about our future that could initiate maybe a certain level of discomfort or pain to force us to think about, well, if we keep doing this, what's the natural outfall? What's the fallout of that particular activity or approach in our life? It's a big mistake not to reflect. It's a big mistake not to cultivate purpose, because one of these days our future will be arriving. It'll be here today. And when we look back at that, life that we've led, there may be huge regrets or what ifs, because our future suddenly is here. So what I'm trying to encourage you in this podcast is to spend some time reflecting on our future. And we're going to talk about future casting as a way of doing that. Because if we're not careful, we'll keep on taking relationships for granted, as an example, or abusing our body and not looking after it carefully, or not cultivating a compelling purpose. And then again, we wake up one day in our future and we just realize that we just wasted just an amazing opportunity that was just given to us in terms of our life and just the preciousness of what we do. So if you're serious about initiating change and you want your future to be, then listen on. Future casting is about vividly imagining your future and what your future will look like if you continue to live your life as you are right now currently. So really focused on, those aspects of your life that are negative aspects. They're things that you want to change, but you haven't been successful in initiating change in these areas. And future casting is about looking at each of these areas and looking down the road into the future as to what your life will look like if you continue with these activities. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, but 5 years, 15, 20, 25 years down the road, to actually see it and feel it and taste and smell it and hear it. And the richer that you experience this future and what the pain of the future might look like, the more powerfully it could move you to a point where you'll need or even want to initiate change in your life. So how can you engage in this future casting at a practical level? What are some ways that we can embrace this idea? Well, I've got three main methods that I would encourage you to take a look at. The first method comes from Charles Dickens, who wrote The Christmas Carol, and of course that famous character Ebenezer Scrooge. And I think most of us know that story, how Ebenezer Scrooge was just a really bad dude. He just didn't care about people. He was very selfish. Everything was about money. And in one night, he went from that personality to waking up the next morning with a completely changed outlook of life and how he treated people and how it made an incredible difference, not just in his life, but in the lives of the people around him. He was visited by apparitions or ghosts from his past, people he knew, and they forced him to confront the reality of his current actions and how those actions could influence his future. So a great way of embracing this future casting idea is take a look at the movie. I'd encourage you to watch it and use that as a motivation or an example of how you can use future casting to create some pain points in your own life to initiate change. So that's the first idea is think about Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol, and Ebenezer Scrooge's experience and how he changed dramatically through the use of future casting. The second idea is to write your obituary, and I know that sounds very morbid and kind of weird, but writing your own obituary can be a very powerful way of framing your future and can be a real catalyst for change. How do you want people to see you? What do you want your legacy to be? Your impact both to your families and your communities. I encourage you to take a look at that. It can be a very powerful exercise. And the third exercise you can go through is to visit a retirement residence, a long-term care facility. By spending time with loved ones who are in those facilities, you make a huge difference and you'll be a source of encouragement to them. But this experience can also profoundly impact you. It really does force you to face your current situation, but also to face the reality of what the future can look like when we get older. And the reality is, it is a future of diminishment. We don't like to focus on that and face it, but that is very, very true. As we get older, it is about the experience of giving in to the issues that just come along with age. And so I'd encourage you to spend some time with loved ones who are getting older and dealing with those kinds of issues, because it'll actually help you to confront with the reality of your own mortality and that your current energy, your current health status, if you've got reasonably good health and reasonably good energy, you come to a point where you go, I'm not going to take that for granted. This is very, very precious. And down the road at some point, I may not have the current, energy that I have right now. And also, it'll probably create some internal motivation for you to do whatever you can to preserve that energy. So a lot of times I think people don't visit seniors and senior citizens' homes or long-term care facilities, however you want to call it. The reality is that it kind of brings at a subconscious level these uncomfortable feelings about getting older in the sense of our own mortality. So are you wanting to make some changes, maybe even significant changes in your life? If you are, then make sure you harness the power of pain and future casting. So remember, Dickens, write your own obituary notice. Visit retirement homes and spend time with relatives and family who are older and really internalize the impact of aging. It is a time of diminishment. There are things that we can do to forestall that for sure. Looking after our health, quality relationships. There's all kinds of things we can do. And we need to be embracing those activities now so that when we get older and we're in that zone of our future self, we're not looking back with regrets. And the other thing is spend some time reflecting on powerful purposes in your life. Again, it's very easy to get distracted and not think about, the important issues of life. We go from one day to the next, just caught up in the busyness of activities. Make sure that you, once in a while, whether it's a personal retreat, whether it's a few times a year or once a year, that you reflect on those big questions, big purposes, big goals, and then begin building specific activities into your day to remind you of those kinds of things. I think morning rituals, evening rituals, that you spend a few minutes just revisiting your important goals and your purpose and reflecting on those things you're grateful for that you don't take for granted are really, really important exercises to go through. So I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Resilient Professional podcast. Make sure you visit the website. We've got all kinds of other resources, other podcasts on different topics that impact both professional and personal resiliency. Be sure to download the free ebook, The Resilient Professional, 15 chapters of great content that really explores this notion of building our professional resilience so we have a bigger impact professionally and on our co-workers in our working environment, but also just as importantly, if not more importantly, on our families and on our local communities that we're involved in. So all the best as you pursue professional